We are live talking about different AI tips to grow your YouTube channel fast. We're talking specifically about Agent Opus today, which if you haven't given it a shot, you should check out that link in the description. I'm joined with Roberto Blake as always. So, Roberto, we've been getting a lot of questions. We've done a lot of streams here on the Opus Clip YouTube channel, and one of the questions is, how could I actually use AI creatively? So, in terms of using Agent Opus, do you have any ideas right off the jump?
Well, I know people like specific advice, so let's try tackling a specific part of the creative process.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, so like give me a specific part of the creative process that someone could want to either improve or save time on.
I think, coming to mind, a lot of it around B-roll, finding assets can take a lot of time. That's one of the ones. Finding something that feels custom and not stock, that's another one. So maybe we start there.
So I would start with taking whatever your script or outline is, and then maybe going into either Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT, and then having that compose what we call in the biz a shot list. You're very familiar with what a shot list is, Andrew. Most of our viewers probably are not. So, why would I say that the best thing is to take your outline or script and then have it generate a shot list of the B-roll that you could possibly want aligned to your script or outline?
Because you want to help give direction to Agent Opus?
But also because if you actually have it output a shot list as a table or something you can bring even into a spreadsheet, you're not having to think about all of what B-roll you might need, number one. So you're not thinking about it, you have a list. So now you have a guidance system, which means you're not going to go into your timeline and be like, oh, I need a shot for this. Oh, I need a shot for this. It's aligned specifically to your script as to what shots are appropriate B-roll. And so you don't have to bust your brain to think about it. You've taken away some cognitive load from your creative fatigue. A lot of people don't realize a lot of the reason they're burnt out, cognitive load bearing. They have all this decision fatigue because they've had to make a string of different creative decisions and keep code switching, context switching and code switching over and over and over. So they have just this cognitive fatigue and overload and pressure that's now been relieved. All right. So there's that part of it. But you could take it further. Once you have your shot list, you could actually have something like Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT write the prompt for generating the shots that it's told you should be what your B-roll is going to be. You could even tell it how much B-roll you want by saying how often, how long is your script, or how long does it think your script will be to read, and then say, okay, well, every 2 to 3 seconds, or every 5 seconds, or whatever it is, depending on your content, I'm going to need some contextual B-roll that matches my thing. So then once you have that list, you go to a second prompt, and then off of that, have it generate a table where for every shot, it gives you the prompt to generate the B-roll. You take that prompt to Agent Opus. Now, Andrew, how many different code switching contexting things have we taken off of our mental plate to not exhaust ourselves mentally?
Quite a lot.
Exactly. We don't have to think about what B-roll should I have. That's been done. Okay, and what prompt do I need to write to get that B-roll? That's now been done. And the mapping of the context to where this B-roll is inserted based on your scripts, it's telling you where to insert it on your scripts. When you go to editing, you can literally use text-based editing to go to that section of the script and then set the markers and drop the appropriate B-roll. We're only a little ways away from an AI being able to take something like those instructions and then drop said matched B-roll based on markers. We're not that far away from that, just doing all of that for you at this point.
I don't disagree. And I think that that's something that I've had a conversation with a lot of my friends who edit. And I think there's a lot of different ways to edit in terms of speed saving and efficiency. And one of the things I have talked to a lot of them about is where you could use something like this for getting started. And I think that's also one of those barriers. You talk about the mental offloading of tasks, but getting started still requires us to do it. So even if it's as simple as you describe, you're at least getting started. And so I want to show and kind of really highlight some of the stuff that, Roberto was talking to. So if you only have a script, it actually has gotten to a point where you can help it with a style. You could do your own custom style, and it has a couple here. You could also select from some of the other styles down here. So maybe you're trying to do,
Uh,
ads. Maybe you're trying to get a visual idea of something. It's
Maybe
really
it's a
helpful for
medical
that.
video. Maybe you're doing something like our good friend Dr. Sten Ekberg. How cool would it be for him to be able to generate some like animations of showing what happens to your body?
Or like this when they're talking about, cells and things. Some of the abstract concepts, which are a little harder to do, and having a visual to help sell that point, especially for someone like Dr. Sten, is very important.
Yep.
And then there's also like assets to add. So if you have new merch, for example, maybe you drop that here. Maybe you upload a photo of yourself, you upload the logo of the merch or the object, and then it does a pretty good job of combining them. And again, the idea here is to help you get even further. If you need like assets, like motion graphics, that's an option for you. So a lot of these things that used to take a lot of time to figure out, a great example is this logo animation. Me and Roberto could spend time working on this and really, fine tuning and doing all of that. But the problem is, if Roberto and I are solo, creators, that time could be better spent elsewhere. And that's one of the things, like, people are like, everyone talks about the time saved. Where should I reallocate that time? So I would love your thoughts, Roberto, because people are like, okay, it's saving me time. Where do I put the extra time I get back?
The place that makes the most difference to the views, which is back into the ideation and packaging, because that's what gets you views, not editing. We used to have a thing where in the old days of YouTube, your editing identity and your editing style made a difference because back then YouTubers were trying to stand out. They was trying to legitimize themselves versus people just watching something on television or cable. This whole internet video thing wasn't taken seriously, so editing style helped you be taken seriously. You don't have to make that same claim to legitimacy today. People care much more about whether they're interested in the idea and the topic because internet video is no longer a novelty. It's no longer a gimmick. So the answer is actually mostly just down to the idea, what we call the topic, the title to make that thing relatable and accessible, the thumbnail to make it attractive and interesting, and then the timing decides that's relevant. So I always say topic, title, thumbnail, and timing. That's your short version of why each of those things matter. If you spend more time on that, you'll increase your views. And so if you're saving time on this editing and production work, then you have more time to put into the thing that decides who's going to watch this.
Very true. I saw this debate recently. I'd love you to kind of give some insight in it. Someone was like, the most important thing on YouTube is actually not the thumbnail, it's the title. And this is always a conversation that I feel people go back and forth on. I feel you can't have one without the other. But
The
would you
best thing
rank
is
them in that order?
the
Topic, title, thumbnail, timing?
no. I would rank it probably topic, timing, title, and thumbnail.
Hmm.
But I would say that the thumbnail interchangeability could be predicated on whether your audience is over 25 versus under.
Hmm. Very true.
But I still would then go much harder on that. If your audience is under 18, I would lean more thumbnail. If your audience is under 15, absolutely thumbnail. And then if your audience is older than 15, 18, 25, it goes much more toward title. And here's why. Like Andrew, something can get my attention visually, but it doesn't mean that I'm interested in it, or it doesn't mean that I relate to it. And it can still be interesting to me, and then it can declare itself as not being for me.
True.
It not being for me isn't decided by a thumbnail, that's decided by a title.
Very fair.
So so the title decides the accessibility. The thumbnail is just the attractiveness of the thing. The title tells me what stance the topic is taking. I could be interested in the topic, but what stance is it taking? Is it taking a stance of this is for me, this is not for me, this is aligned to my interest or desires, or it's not aligned to that, or it's saying my interest and desires are good or bad? So that's all communicated with words, not necessarily images. The images can get my attention. The words are necessary to get me context. I may personally prioritize one or the other based on maturity or age, but if they're not going or signaling a specific direction, it's very hard to get me to commit, at least in most things. Now, if something is just entertainment or product, it may not need to rely on my identity or desires beyond my interest, which is why some creators will insist that it's thumbnail, but that's because they're making content that at a glance is just entertaining. It requires no thought or it requires no identity. If I make a video about a certain software usage, that's an identity. You're an Adobe person, you're a DaVinci person, that tells you this video is for you. You might be interested in video editing, but if I tell you I'm not using your tool, I am qualifying or disqualifying you from watching the video because it may not be relevant to you. You may want to solve this problem, but you don't use this tool, so the video is irrelevant to you.
Very true. I also think that, especially when you remove thumbnail in a platform like Shorts, where it is more based on the topic and timing, I think it really depends what kind of audience you're trying to reach. We're live now, right? And so for us, people are a little bit more for a webinar kind of format. That's a little more normal in live streaming. Podcasting has a certain style. I also think that, the overall, I love how you talk about there are things that disqualify people from interacting or engaging with things.
Yep.
And one conversation that I've seen is for some people, AI used to be more of a disqualifier, but they're becoming more and more okay with it. What are your thoughts on a disqualifier like that?
There are going to always be an entrenched group of people that will have some line in the sand. There's no such thing as completely universal adoption. That's why we use things like the 80-20 rule. We use things like the 80-20 rule. Some things we want a binary on and a 50-50 thing where we can literally just signal to our tribe and say, this is a binary yes or no, you're for or against this. You can sometimes also get views from opposition off of hate views if you care about that sort of thing. And that could be things that you would think weren't polarizing, but it could literally just be even a divide within a fandom like Star Wars. It doesn't have to be anything serious like politics. It could literally just be a divide on a preference in Star Wars or a preference in Apple versus PC, Mac versus PC, Apple versus Android. And I think it's brutal. That gets
100%.
brutal. But just so people understand that it's like, it doesn't even have to be serious subject matter for it to literally be like a 50-50 divide on anything. Like you can have a 50-50 divide binary on most things, believe it or not. And yeah.
I mean, there's that classic, is hot dog a sandwich? People will find a way to disagree.
The wars that have been fought over the pancakes versus waffles conversation, in which case the pancake people are allowed to be wrong. You're allowed to exist and you're allowed to be wrong.
You are entitled to your wrong opinion. And
yes, exactly.
Look, I'll go to the Waffle House.
Could ever be superior to waffles?
Look, I'll go to Waffle House any day over IHOP, and I'll put that out there, and you can disagree.
That one is a meal and a show in most cases.
Look, maybe my Southern roots are coming out.
That is a Southern thing. Yeah, it's a dinner and a show.
100%. But we actually have a question, or more of a request, and I'll just want to quickly acknowledge this. And this is someone that's asked, any plans to add feature to Opus Clip to tag the source video from YouTube Shorts rather than going into YouTube Studio? I believe you're talking about related shorts. So what I can tell you is you should definitely flag this to Agent Opus and Opus Clip. Another thing I would quickly add is that might be an API limitation. Basically, the platform doesn't allow it. So you should definitely reach out to them at support. But I find it interesting because we've had this conversation, Roberto. Should we tag a source video or a more related video? You've talked about this in your short splits, but I see we have 25 people watching more or coming in every second here. What are your thoughts on a feature like that? Should they focus on tagging other videos or the direct source?
So it depends. If the direct source is extremely relevant, if the direct source related video is extremely relevant, podcast episode, interview, speaking engagement possibly, or public event, or man on the street compilation that it was derived from, live stream clip, then if having the deeper context of where the clip comes from would be meaningful to a viewer watching it or would be helpful to a viewer watching it, then my answer is yes. But if this thing can stand on its own, if a short can stand on its own, or it was made as an intentional standalone short, I'd rather just route it to a video that converts a viewer to a subscriber or turns a viewer into a buyer and is a proven winner for you. And I would try to just link as many of the shorts to it as possible. In my short split strategy, I tell people all the time, you may not have a related video to this, or it may not make sense, or that video may be underperforming. So don't squander the traffic. Send it all to a video that gets you something you want, either subscribers or money.
And I think that's actually a really good point. And I see him. Imperial says, yes, related. My bad. All good. I think that this goes into an interesting conversation because with things like Opus Clip, Region Opus, it's easier than ever to build out these things. And I think that if it could be a standalone, I think you're absolutely right, Roberto. You could also, if you have compilations of episodes, use those top moment shorts to point back to it, especially if you're doing some longer form. So I think that that's the thing that is really interesting with related, not exact shorts. And that's actually something that since we've had this conversation, in fact, Imperial says, I appreciate the reply. I'm actually in the middle of your short splits idea now, and it's going great, which is why I bring these things up and flag. But someone actually was asking I always go back and I look at our comments on some of these. And one of them was, I've been blitzing now for 2 months and it's been really well. Do I always continue the blitz or do I need to change? What are your thoughts if they've been, following it for a couple months now?
If it's been going well, this is fantastic and I'm very happy for them. If it's been going well, measure not only what did well, what did best. Now, if you measure what did best, you can adapt the strategy a little bit, and I would keep blitzing, but now I would refine the blitz down to what did people like more, what did people like most, and now blitz on that, and then reduce the amount of experimentation down to like an 80-20 scenario, 20 experimentation, 80 proven performers. So I would expand on your proven performers and go less experiment, less expression, and go, okay, now 80% of my stuff is going to be based on what worked more, what worked most, and to see if that is still going to work, or was that seasonal, was that temporary, was that a moment in time? Okay, cool. If not, I can now experiment 50-50 or reverse it 80-20 if that doesn't continue to prove true. So now it's a matter of refinement. If it's working, we're not going to stop momentum. We're just going to refine what we're doing and keep that same energy, because now we can improve the gains by eliminating and trimming the fat.
I think that makes sense. And whenever I reply, I'm like, I said double down on what's working. I didn't say it as succinct as you, but that'd be like, that was my gut feeling.
Well, you made
and
it more succinct. I made it more specific.
No, I think that, between the two, definitely, I'm happy that people are trying it, because it's gone from a thing where people were so afraid to try posting shorts, yet alone multiple per day. Now, I did see someone that said, I've posted multiple shorts, but my audience keeps telling me they don't like shorts. Do I listen to them or do I keep trying? Because they were seeing high views, but they were seeing a lot more comments.
But negative comments, trust the views over the comments, because if I could tell you, what would you rather have on YouTube? High views or nice comments? We know the answer is deep down you want both, but only one of those things pays you and gets you your real goals. So if the thing is, think about it like this. Anyone who goes viral gets a ton of hate. Should they really look at their comment section, or should they look at the majority of the silent supporters? What does it say to the majority of silent supporters if you change something you're doing based on a little bit of negativity, based on a vocal, visible minority? That's wildly unfair. So the thing is, that's why I like going to data instead of sentiment. Sentiment can be data, but it's usually not the most important data. I would rather trust what data says people are doing than what people in the minority are saying they want, or what they do, or what have you, because they say they don't like shorts, and yet they're still there, they're still watching it, they still commented on it, which means they were still in the shorts feed, because that's the only way they got the video, was the shorts feed. Or if they weren't, they clicked it from the homepage feed, which means there was still something about this that made them watch. No one is tricked into watching a YouTube short. So they can say that they hate all this short form, and if I audit their watch history, they still watched 100 shorts this week if they didn't watch 50 shorts this day. They can say that all they want. I say that I prefer long form, and you're still going to see me have a watch history of all people. You're going to see me have 50 to 100 shorts that I watched before I got out of bed. So the thing is, we can say all we want. Our data is going to tell a different story. No one should trust what I say about my viewing patterns. They should trust what the data says.
Right. And my only caveat would be is, are these people like active members? Are they just casual viewers? Because there could be a difference here. Like
They
this
could be outside your
person,
audience. They could not, may not even
yeah,
be your subscribers.
exactly. And so I always say, who are they in context to your channel? If they are someone who's been around forever and is like a long-term supporter, maybe you take a little bit of agency into that and you just explain to them they do not have to watch it. And I like sometimes I've seen that where people are like, well, I want to support you. And it's like, hey, if you don't like the thing I'm doing, you don't have to support every single thing I do. And
What is
that's
it? What is the saying?
okay.
What is the saying? This
Mm.
content isn't for you, and that's
It's,
okay.
it's the bean soup theory, where it's like, well, what if I don't like beans? Then don't make bean soup.
Right. But, yeah. And this goes to creators and consumers. There are creators who say, well, what if I don't want to make shorts? I go, look, I'm not telling you have to make shorts. All I'm telling you is they get 200 billion views a day. There is an audience for them, and you're invisible there if you don't do it. And you're passing on that. And so, what's your reasoning? Is it money? Is it pride? That's why I even developed the short split strategy. Or do you think it hurts your long form? Because I developed the short split strategy to neutralize every objection. I take objections that people have to things seriously. I was a product developer in corporate America in terms of like, oh, what should we do and everything. I would finagle configurations of, hey, we have these resources as a web hosting company. What if we finagle this and we package it like this and we price it like this? I was developing product. Okay. So offers, if you will. So product developer is just someone who figures out an offer that is aligned to a consumer, an audience, right? And I go, look, if you don't want to make shorts, that's fine. But what's your objection here? Because I went through all of it. I can show you how to make money with shorts. And now it's easier than ever because you can do YouTube shopping links in shorts, even at 500 subscribers now, 3,000 watch hours. And if you're worried about the ad revenue, in general, shopping affiliate could make you far more than ad revenue. I know small creators, Andrew, that don't even have 10,000 subscribers making $2,000 a month because of YouTube shopping. Because
Wow.
if someone buys a product and there's like a 20-30% commission on it, it's easier to make $5 that way than it is to get 1,000 views. It's easier to get 1 in 100 people to buy something than to get 1,000 people to watch something in the first place. And even if you do get 1,000 people to watch something, if it's short form, maybe you make 10 to 50 cents. If it's long form, maybe you make $2 or $5. But if you make one sale, you make the same $2 or $5. So you have people who now, if they're making a bunch of shorts and it's product centric, if they're in tech, beauty, lifestyle, makeup, fashion, DIY, tools, and doing like home repair and things of that nature, like they make money hand over fist now. Because even in their short form, they're getting people to buy products, and every one of those ends up being like this $5, $10, $20, $50 commission for them. Especially when there's big partners like Lowe's, for example, is doing I think they're doing something crazy like 30 to 50% commissions right now.
They are.
There's bounties, there's things out there. Some things do bounties where there's like, hey, we'll give you flat rate, $20 a sale. Think about it. If your content sits there and you go, wait a minute, I'll focus on this thing that makes me $20 a sale, even if it's a short, you can make hundreds of dollars off of that short that you'd never make off of a long form video because you can never get that long form video to 10,000 or 50,000 views to make $100. So a lot of people are discounting this. I can tell you, okay, here's how you make money with shorts. Oh, here's how you get subscribers with shorts. Here's how you get views. Oh, I can get you monetized on shorts. It's a 90-day window. 90-day window is like, it's harder, but it's more aggressive than a 12-month window. If you have 12 months, a lot of you, it will take you 6 or 12 months to get monetized. But if I tell you we got to go hard for 90 days, you'll have it in the 90 days because that's what you're working toward. So you'll get it sooner. So I've had people get monetized in 30 to 90 days, Andrew, on shorts because it didn't give them this 12 months to drag it out, which they filled up that space. So that's the key. The key to this is, what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? We have someone in the chat said, this guy talks too much. It's like, dude, it's not pre-recorded. This is like, I'm here in the chat and we see the chat. Live. I'm calling you out in the chat. And here's the thing. I'm answering a question in detail because a lot of you complain that people gatekeep information for you. And then when somebody wants to run their mouth, and yeah, I talk a lot. That's why I get paid to do it on stages for a living. Like, you get paid to talk about something that you're actually good at, that you know about. Information people gatekeep and paywall between $5,000 courses and cohorts. And then when you give them the information that's behind the paywall, All they want to do is tell you to shut up.
It's definitely a situation where, like, going back to how you can make money and, like, especially with the monetization, I think that ultimately YouTube lowering it to 500 subscribers is also a really big win for creatives, because before it used to be 10,000 for the shopping affiliate, now it's 500 subs.
It was
Like
20,000. And then it was
uh
10,000.
20,000, 10,000, 5,000, 1,500 finally. And I think that, the more we have, and if you haven't seen it, because I know there's a few people who may not have seen it, this is what it looks like. And, Roberto's talking about companies like Lowe's, there's Home Depot, like major brands here that are looking to work with creators. And you can sort by highest commission if that's something that interests you. And some brands are pretty,
That's insane.
85% commission is pretty insane. So, like, there are some that make sense, and you should definitely verify and, go through and do your due diligence. But the fact that this is a thing on platform, like, Roberto, when we started, this was a dream.
Oh my
And
God, the things you had to go through just to get and stay in the Amazon affiliate program.
affiliates,
Remember, I was making like $1,500 a month, and I ended up through no fault of my own, they kicked me out of the program, and then I had to get invited back. And it's like I never made that kind of money again, but also I got jaded on it. So like you make so much more money, like potentially with YouTube shopping affiliate. It's directly in YouTube. People trust it. There are YouTube creators who have their own brands in Shopify. If you become a Shopify elite level, you can apply to the YouTube shopping affiliate program, and your own products can be listed in here. There are brands here from creators that are listed in YouTube shopping affiliate.
absolutely. And people are wondering how you get there. You get there through your Earn tab. You do need to be a YouTube partner, at least partial in the 500 sub and the 3,000 watch hour requirement range, or the shorts requirement. But yeah, to Roberto's point, there are a lot of real brands here. This is built into YouTube, and like Petco is new, and it's a 25%. So if you are someone who does a lot of animal content, that is a huge win for you. If you are a fitness channel and you're always wearing Nike stuff, Nike has joined the program. Like, there's new ones joining all the time. Sweetwater is now there. So if you know anything about music production, I'm waiting for B&H Photo, because when they join, I'll be so excited. Shout outs to everyone who knows.
Beard Brand is a beard oil and men's fragrance company that was started. They were homegrown on YouTube. They were e-com, and now they're a proud YouTube shopping affiliate partner. They're right there in the platform for people to make commissions on their product.
That's incredible. And look, I mean, these are the things we're talking about when you're looking at the different stuff. Like, there are known
Adidas.
brands, Adidas, however you would, I've heard it said both ways. But it's one of those things where, right now it's still a lot of physical goods, but I've heard some rumors that they're looking into digital stuff, which could be exciting. So software stuff.
Yeah.
So people are saying this is right up their alley. People are surprised, they're learning. But we also had a question that I want to make sure that we acknowledge, and this comes from the Y School podcast. I'm getting a lot of views on my shorts that I'm pulling from my long form videos, but the same long form videos only have 8 views. Is that bad?
I'd be curious as to what their honest assessment of their long form videos are in terms of the packaging. Is the thumbnail a 1 out of 5 thumbnail? Because that doesn't help you. What about the titles? Are the titles easy to understand? Are they at a 3rd or 5th grade reading level? Do they take a specific point of view? How do they identify with the target audience, and so on and so forth? Because I would assume that
you have podcast in the name, so just a flag.
So I would assume that a lot of times with podcasts just look at big people like Joe Rogan, and then they don't put a lot of effort into the thumbnail. I'm not saying that that's happening here. I'm making an assumption that is just the normal thing, right? The other thing with that is that a lot of times podcast titles are very hard to onboard people into because of the way that titles are written. And again, it's because people will try to do the success leaves clues thing, and they'll look at what the big people are doing and then say, but the thing is, the only reason those big people can do that is because they're big. So the thing is, there is a difference between The reason a lot of people think that YouTube advice conflicts is when, if you watch any podcast that have big YouTubers on, you will absolutely feel like the advice all conflicts because you're talking about rich people with like 20 people teams and who already have success. And a lot of them did not. They started at zero, but a lot of them, I'll be honest, you have a lot of people whose careers were astroturfed. You have a lot of people that knew the right people, were in the right place at the right time, got shout outs, and grew rapidly. So I wouldn't actually, if you're a small creator, I would never take advice from anyone who uses the words go viral most of the time. It like because you're just not there. And if you're not like in that crew, you're not in an LA YouTube crew or anything like that, then I wouldn't worry about it. You want to look at what will help me if nobody knows who I am and nobody cares, what will actually make them interested in this? And so
Mm.
you'd want to position your titles, your thumbnails, and your topic from there. So like even as a strategy, I haven't seen the channel, I don't know anything about the channel, but I would say, as someone who's just very familiar with a lot of broad subject matter, that first of all, I would treat the thumbnails for these videos, I would treat them as individual standalone YouTube videos. And I would really think about what makes this the most interesting, attractive, sight unseen concept video. So I would actually, if anything, I might study how people get that aren't even big YouTubers that get people to watch documentaries or commentary. I would look at what they're doing in their thumbnails. So I would look at that. I wouldn't hesitate if you're not a graphic designer to use AI to help you. So I would do that. And then in terms of titles and topic positioning, I would look hard at conversations that already exist and arguments taking place that have massive threads in Reddit, X. If there's already attention, emotion, and energy and momentum behind something, then that tells you it's a relevant topic and that the timing is still good. And I would like try and then reverse engineer that. Or I would look at, okay, here are people in the media that have hot takes on my subject matter. Here are people that are already known. Let me have a reaction and commentary to whatever celebrity had a slop comment about the subject matter in which I'm an expert or trying to insert myself into. So then they don't have to know me, like me, or trust me to be interested in clicking on this and just getting another opinion and point of view, the same way they would gossip at the water cooler about, oh, did you hear what so and so said and everything? Or did you see what happened last night on The Bachelorette or what have you? So I would onboard an audience by saying, if they don't know me, what do they know about? What do they care about? We did this in product and tech YouTube all the time. They don't have to know who you are. We wouldn't even put our face in the titles. We would literally just hold up whatever the latest device is, block out our face practically like this, depending on what you're doing. Or rather, if I take the case off, it'll make the point clearer because then the logo that people care about is showing. You would literally just do this for a thumbnail, and this still works, by the way. Just do this for a thumbnail, and it works. Now, usually it's not beat the hell like mine. I've been holding out waiting for the iPhone 18. But yeah.
Are you gonna go the fold?
No, probably not. Like,
Fair
I'm
enough.
not making that kind of video content anymore. I'm not doing tech YouTube anymore, so I'm not going to buy the fold. And there's just too high a probability with all the gear that I like travel with of dropping it. So, I mean, look what I did to my precious like 15 Pro. I'm not going to get the fold. The thing is more likely to break than anything. Like, and
We're-
I say that now, but give it 2 years and maybe I'll cave and I'll buy one.
And you know what's gonna happen? Someone's gonna be like, Roberto Blake was wrong about the fold. And you know, it
Right.
goes right to what you said earlier, right? Because like, you know, you've done this long enough, like Roberto and I just want to take a moment to appreciate this comment that said, totally enjoy these two guys. Always provide so much information, honest and real. But like that also comes from Roberto and I doing this for years, right? And you know, we had a recent live stream about AI slop, which goes to the point that you were making about the Wife School podcast here, which is like find things that people are talking about and how can you plug into it. That was one where people, you know, they never had the perspective of that AI is not the only thing making slop. And like a lot of people are like, I never even considered humans could create slop.
We've been doing it for millennia. Like the most art is not something that you would value. Most things people call art are not something you would value. Most of your favorite famous artists were not valued for their art in their time. Van Gogh died penniless. A lot of your famous musicians, even some of the ones who were celebrated in their time, they blew their money and they died penniless. Mozart, He gave everything and put all of his money back into his art, much to the consternation of his young, beautiful wife, Constancia. And Mozart died penniless and was put in a pauper's grave. You know, Van Gogh, we all know the tragic tale of him. Hemingway died tragically. I lived in North Carolina. Every Halloween, we'd go to Edgar Allan Poe's house and everything like that. He died penniless in the gutter. There's that's a little morbid, but what's the point I'm making is that even great things may not fit the time that they're in, and people could think they're the slop at the time, and then they might be celebrated later. That happens. People will have certain feelings about something now, and then it'll be celebrated later. Andrew, the prequels were panned by critics, and now they're celebrated as God's gift to cinema in the Star Wars community. So, like, that's a thing. And to be honest, they aged actually really well. Case in point. But also, you want to talk about slop. If you're not making content for pigs, why are you worried about who consumes slop or how much there is? Do you think J.R.R. Tolkien really cared that there were people out there writing tabloids or writing slop romance novels? Like, Andrew, do you really think Tolkien cared?
No, he mostly cared if they were. He more had cared about keeping like magic alive. So
he cared
not.
about that. He cared about the value system that he wanted to like put in there and everything like that. He very much cared about creating a lack of moral ambiguity in his writing. He wanted there to be, he said, I want people, because he was reading these initially as bedtime stories to his own children. He wanted there to be a clean distinction between good and evil. Brian Jacques, Redwall, he said the same thing, that I wanted there to be clear black and white for people there, young people there reading. They need to see black and white, good and evil in very absolutist terms, so they could have a certain amount of boundaries so that they can recognize when people are trying to be evil or exploit them. So like these were values that were important to these writers. They cared about the message they were putting out, the vision they had for their craft. They didn't care about what other people were going to make, and they didn't care that there was an abundance of slop and trash in the marketplace. They only were concerned with putting out things of quality and things that shared their values.
Or improving at their craft, which is why, like, one of the things that Roberto is, I would say, pretty known for is make 100 crappy videos. And one of the things people are like, I remember at the beginning they were pushing back. They're like, isn't 100 a lot? Nowadays with shorts, I'm seeing people like pump out thousands of videos. So it's interesting how even in that time, that has, the mindset has shifted. So Roberto's right. Like, what Roberto might say a couple, years ago might be more appreciated today, even though he was right the whole time. Like, that's the thing about doing it for as long as Roberto and I have.
Yep. Like people don't realize how much volume success takes, because what happens is people kind of lie to them in the sense that you get to see people's portfolio. You don't get to see the body of work that built that portfolio. They only show you what they decide to release. You get to see none of what was on the cutting room floor. When someone puts out a 20-minute video, you don't get to see the 40 minutes they cut. Like, you don't. Like, so that's okay. When we see a film in the theaters, that's not the director's cut. There's another hour that could have been put into that, and we didn't get that in the theatrical release because mass adoption, but it wasn't the artist's definitive vision of their work per se. But you also don't see the scrap pile. And the thing is, a lot of people's scraps would be the art you'd produce on your best day, and they just don't put it out. But also, you don't get to see the string of failures it took to lead to the successful outcome either. So it kind of, people are bedazzled and I think misled. And I think there is something, I understand it because, again, like even the judgment of your first efforts all being this slop, this trash, these crappy videos, they're your first efforts. You're supposed to, how dare you actually suck at something you've never done before and dare to release it to us and unleash it and burden us of the public with that and everything like that. But the reality is, wouldn't you, and then you lament when you see someone achieve greatness, you're like, I wish I could have seen their humble beginnings. You are currently roasting and criticizing and bullying the hell out of everybody who publishes their humble beginnings. It took Picasso. Picasso made 50,000 works of art over a 71-year career, we only praise him for like 50 of them.
And I think it also goes back to, people are like, well, I'm so afraid of AI replacing us. If you're not making 100 crappy videos, that's the most human thing about it, is those mistakes, those learnings. Like, that is a huge part of what actually makes us human. And sometimes people are surprised, well, I left a bad take in where I had to refilm, and that was my most rewatched moment. Yeah, because guess what? It's relatable.
I joke, and it's like, you guys, you know how like, my stuff wasn't AI and everything like that? Because of all the crap you guys give me about my book that was 40,000 words, you harangue me about the 12 typos. Great. I'm glad I wrote it in 2022 because, like, Jesus, everything is a witch hunt now on this stuff with the AI. But again, in terms of people worrying about replacement, it's like if you make stuff for an audience, Andrew, above the age of, say, 25 or 30, which is probably most people watching us, and I'll have my advice for the younger crowd as well. But if you're making stuff for people above 25, you're probably not going to be replaced by AI because the value of the marketplace of what AI can do and will do is much more suited to replacing entertainment and fantasy. So think about it. If you're a beauty and product reviewer and your whole thing is like, like when we have Angela on, for example, she makes makeup and beauty reviews that focus on dark-skinned women and their what works for their complexion, skin tone, and preferences. How is AI going to replace Angela? How's Angela Denise going to be replaced by AI?
Not easy.
Currently, it's not very fine-tuned when it comes to darker complexions anyway. It's not going to have any actual lived experience to offer in terms of that, and it's not going to have any such thing as taste. So how the hell is AI going to replace any lifestyle creator in terms of men's lifestyle and women's lifestyle? How the hell is AI going to replace anybody doing that? So that's a whole category of creators who has nothing to worry about. For those who make content that's parenting and or family vlogs, AI, how is it going to replace that? AI's never raised children. It's never had children. It's never, raised like a child. It's never cared for an elderly parent. It's never been behind on these bills. It's never done those things. So how is AI going to? AI doesn't have the chaos of like the 5 pets on top of the 5 children. So like, how is, like I said, as Tom jumps into my lap, like, so how is AI going to replace family vloggers, Andrew? Is that a whole nother category? It's not going to be able to replace. So
nor would I want to watch it do it.
No, would you want to watch it? Okay, so that's out. It's not going to replace, like, just because it can have strategies and definitions, it's never actually shared the experience of running a business, and it's never run an experiment on it. So everyone who thinks gurus, quote unquote, what they call gurus or advice channels are going to die, I beg to differ. Like, you're not going to sit there. If you wanted to ever get business advice from Google and Wikipedia, you already would have done it. If you actually were going to read a book, you already would have done it. And so that's not going to go away. The channels that do book reviews, book summaries, people want the experience and the emotional impact and to want to know how a book made you feel and that it finally made you get past your addiction or how it got you past your depression or how it rekindled your hope in romance and finding true love. People want that. If I told somebody, hey, a book that like really turned me around after a girl broke my heart, I read this book, Rhapsody. It was a fantasy book, and 60 pages in, I believed in love again, and then went and bought the entire trilogy. And it wasn't a romance book. It was a fantasy book, dragons and magic and time travel and all these things. And 60 pages in, they actually convinced me that love was still alive and real and could be found in this world, even if it only lives a day. And that's powerful. AI cannot replace the storytelling that comes from a lived experience. And so, okay, Roberta, that's fine and dandy if you're doing education or lifestyle. What about us entertainers? Well, what about you? Can AI interact in a meaningful way with the chat in real time? AI is not going to sit there and be the ultimate live streamer. There's exceptions to that where there are gimmicks where it'll work in VTubing. But for most of us, no, it's not going to do that. It's not going to be able to conjure up the chemistry of when you have an interaction with a guest. So on an entertainment side, if you're doing man on the street content, it's not going to replace you. If you're doing interview entertainment podcast, because those still work for comedy and so on, so it's not going to replace you. If you're actually entertaining and you actually are the best true crime conspiracy theorist and you actually have this really chaotic brain that draws these interesting conclusions and you have this gift for storytelling, it's not going to replace you. So if you're like genuinely about it, and you really think about what can I do, you could build a moat where it makes it really complicated because AI is maybe good at doing one person on camera at a time, but not two, and not for extended periods of time. And it's not good at physical comedy. It's not good at physical humor. And it's not really good at the realism when it comes to human interactions and emotional range and depth. So if you really are an entertainer and you're worried about it, go take an improv class, go learn physical comedy, go get yourself into like the best shape ever and show as over time that there's a body transformation, because the audience will be parasocially invested in that. Be like, oh, wow, you're looking so good. Or, oh, wow, I remember where you started. Or, oh, wow, I love the makeover. I love the glow up and everything. AI can't have a glow up story. It can't have a makeover. It can't have a fitness journey. It can't do that and get people emotionally invested. So what y'all are worried about is y'all are worried about the most shallow parts of content creation when you're worried about AI. And it's also the content that appeals to the lowest common denominator. If you have the guts to go after more sophisticated audiences with more depth, more relationship, more maturity, you'll win long term. And because the main thing that AI is going to win on, frankly, Andrew, and where it makes sense for it to win on, is lowering the cost and increasing the output in production on animation-based content and on spectacle, high-end entertainment that would normally cost extraordinary budgets to compete on in terms of action, storytelling, and adventure. But on reality TV style entertainment, it's not going to win. It's just not. And on terms of live streaming, can't win there. Podcasting can't win there. Can't win if all you do is communicate facts but no truth through experience. Then okay, it could replace you on education content. There's no way in hell for it to replace lifestyle. And if you combine education with entertainment, it can't do it. There's no nuance for it to be able to do it. It can't navigate it. If you combine education with lifestyle, it can't do it. You combine entertainment with lifestyle, it can't do it. AI can only replace you over the next 5 years if you're making one-dimensional content.
True. Well, I mean, it's also kind of like parrots can learn, up to 1,000 words, but it doesn't mean it understands the depth of what it's saying. Similarly, same with AI. And in fact, we have something here that was very interesting from Imperial Man Podcast. I do Star Wars lore. Ask AI to make you a lore video, even the basics about. It's way off, plus not adding any of your own commentary. It makes the content shallow, AI or not. Absolutely. And that's why I go back to the parrot analogy. The parrot's not AI. It lacks nuance, lived experience, and depth. So one thing I will say is there's always been competition. In fact, I'll kind of go back to my, because Roberto and I have known Roberto now for over a decade. Like, Roberto, you ran track and field. There's always competition, but you can't worry about that. You can only worry about beating your best time. That's not the point.
I'd rather, and this is actually true because this happened, I'd rather get a bronze medal and get my best time than a gold medal and find out that I was slower.
So it's all about your personal best.
I'd rather do my personal best than beat everyone else. I can lose to someone else. I can accept that. But losing to myself, unacceptable.
That's a lot harder to deal with. Then look, I understand that. And
main character energy.
With a lot of people who are creating, I get the fear of AI, but there's always been things you've had to worry about. Like, AI is just the latest boogeyman.
You are more likely to lose to some big YouTuber who has a strategist who can find your outlier video that did really well, poach all of your ideas, turn that into a series that you can't keep up with because you have no of the manpower, the investment capital, nor the experience to scale that thing. For you, it was a one-off, and oh, it got 100,000 views. Your biggest competition is not AI. Your biggest competition is a big YouTuber seeing that you had 2,000 subscribers, got 100,000 views on long-form video, stealing every aspect of your idea, taking it to his team, upping the stakes, and turning that into a 6-episode mini series off of that idea and getting 5 million views and upload. That's your actual biggest threat, is a YouTuber with more resources, not a machine that doesn't have any context, not somebody else who is struggling and has access to a machine. They will not be able to really just produce you in the same way that an established big YouTuber is already your biggest threat. So it's like so you had to worry about that well before you had to worry about competing with AI, and that was the more legitimate thing that was going to take attention from you.
Very true. And I think that, as we talk about, how you can use AI to grow, going back to the Wife School podcast, like some of the stories I'm sure you share on your podcast could easily be audio that you upload to Agent Opus, which gives it a unique perspective. The audio to video might make a lot of sense for you. You could upload your audio, you could upload and then see the story come to life, which makes you stand out in a different way. Because I see, I would love to hear it. I just bring this up because they said they're using AI tools, so Agent Opus makes sense. What do you got, Roberto?
So watch this. I'd go and I'd find an interesting story about a couple, like from Reddit, and I would start with an in-person intro of the thing, kind of like how Smosh Pit does, and then I'd go, hey, I don't even know if this is true, but I think it's interesting and we can learn a lot from this. And then you intro the story, and then you tee it up and you tell the story, but then you have Agent Opus generate B-roll so that they can visualize the story along with you as you tell it in this interesting way. And then you can cut a couple of times back to your own reaction to it. Then you end with the B-roll ends, and then you go into, here are my thoughts on this story, assuming that this is actually true about this couple and what the lesson here is.
That's amazing.
And the beauty of it is, you already know that this is something that will resonate if it's already getting massive traction on Reddit. You can still credit the original person on Reddit, link in the description for the 1% of people who will care, and to give that Redditor a boost and a little ego boost. But then also, they can't sit there and go, oh, you stole my story, because they posted it publicly. It's fair game. It's actually fair use. And you made it transformative because you added imagery to it, plus commentary, plus your own take, and you made it educational commentary in nature. You've passed all the check marks for fair use.
And I think you've knocked it out of the park. And even they said, I haven't used Agent Opus. I've only used the clipping part. And then they said, wow, for what they saw and heard from you. So, I mean, that's why we do these live streams. People are wondering, you guys help so much. What's the end goal? It's to get you actually making content. It's to get you actually outside of what you think you can do. And I think for Roberto, I mean, I'll throw that to you, is what excites you with AI when people are trying to create with it? For me, it's just getting people doing it, getting them to actually create.
Because it's one of the last legs between turning a thought into a thing. Because the biggest thing for content creators, especially working class content creators, is, all right, they work 40, 50 hours a week, so they have no time. They work 40, 50 hours a week. They have very little, most Americans, if they're at least even if you're a median income American, how much disposable income can you have? So what's your investment capital to put back into content creation? It's usually very minimal. You're usually a solo creator, so you don't have any manpower. And so you haven't done this before, you haven't succeeded at before, you have almost no experience or expertise or education around it. So that's the acronym for time, by the way. So time always is the problem, quite literally. So what does AI do? AI means that, okay, if something would take 10 hours, this tool might reduce it to 1-2 hours, maybe even 10 minutes, literally, especially with some of these workflows. Opus, incredible workflows that takes what would be hours of work into minutes of work, sometimes seconds of work. So that's practical. So I want people using the tool, not just because I'm partnered or an affiliate. It's because, by the way, if you made content and you were more successful, even if you become successful, you can't know everything. Everyone thinks, well, Roberto, don't you sell courses and products to small YouTubers? The overwhelming majority of my customers, Andrew, have been YouTubers that are almost full-time, or they're at least over 20,000 subscribers. The most people who spend the most money with me are all over 100,000 or over 1 million subscriber channels. That is the
Same.
most people I've worked with, and they have given me money. My money has always come from large creators rather than small creators. But here's the thing: every large creator starts at zero. So my thing is, if I put out enough goodwill and if I do enough things and you ever have any hope of being monetized, I know you have the money to afford me. So that's kind of like the what would they say? The non-altruistic version of Roberto is, no, you guys, I will tell you up front what my angle is. My angle is, if I give you a workflow and a system that makes sense, that saves you time, you can justify buying from every partner, every affiliate that I use and that I promote, because your goal was you eliminated one of your biggest bottlenecks. You don't have time and you don't have manpower. If I offer education, you know how to do things properly that save you time and work with your capacity for the manpower that you currently have. And if I'm successful at getting you to do that, you might generate enough money to have the investment capital to keep forwarding your career. I've thought it through.
Yeah. And long term, maybe you'll be in the same room as Roberto one day and you guys can just have a fun time. Like, all of this comes back in strides. If you put good in, you'll get good out. And I appreciate that, because a lot of times what I've learned doing this for 13 years myself is that YouTube oftentimes is easier than we want to give credit to on how to actually do it, especially with all the tools we have access to now. But we stand in our own way, be it fear, be it, the fear of perception, be it the fear of success. Some people don't know what to do when they hit success. We both know YouTubers who found success really quickly and couldn't handle it. And
Yeah.
what I would tell you is that what we're trying to do, and what we're trying to do here on Opus, is find ways to make this easier for you, give you the tools for when that happens, you're prepared. Because a lot of things, get discounted. Roberta, you've done over 600 free videos. You've done over 1,000 actually, but most people know the ones that are public.
It's
that
publicly,
they
it's
see.
over 13. It's over 1,300 long form that are public.
Mhm.
It's on the main channel. You can
Yep.
combine that, I think, with like the 80 or so the podcast channel, and then the ones that were members only is like another 400.
And
And
don't
then there's
discount
the-
all the partner videos,
And then there's the hundreds of partner videos across multiple partners, and
including
then
YouTube.
including YouTube. Yeah, actually, literally on YouTube's own education channels, I partnered with YouTube. When everyone says, "Well, you don't know what you're talking about," it's like, then why did YouTube partner with me and like put me on their own channels? And why is my face in the YouTube app on occasion, like for the videos we partnered on? It's like, I don't like to say that to brag. I say that to make a point of
No, I'm saying that just to reinforce. Sometimes that's what this is what you do. You get good friends who know your work, and they make sure to give you your credit.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's nice to get your flowers while you're still alive, unlike Vincent van Gogh. So the key, though, I would tell everybody is you could simplify this to 3 things, but it doesn't mean those things get any easier. And then the goal is, if someone gives you the right information, the right tools, the right processes, then those things that we've simplified may also become easier, because you only have to do 3 things to succeed at YouTube. The problem is those 3 things become very difficult depending on what you're trying to do and what resources you have. They are easy for either established YouTubers or people who already are rich that want to become YouTubers, people who are already in LA that want to be YouTubers, people who are already in another industry, people who are already attractive, or people who have previous success that they can port from another one. Like, most of your big YouTubers, some of them have humble beginnings, but I'll be real with y'all. The majority of them had some previous success. They worked at BuzzFeed, Vice, Vox. So they already had the opportunity to play with other people's budgets, other people's money, and learn all the ropes at no expense to themselves other than the cost of labor. And they were going to have to work somewhere to pay rent anyway. So that was a real thing. Most of them had a jump start to their career. They had relationships. They had people who, because they were somewhere else, would react to them or shout them out. They had a lot of people willing to help them launch their careers. I've watched people overnight become 100,000 or 1 million subscriber channels because they worked for another big YouTuber. There are so many YouTubers now in the tech space that have 100,000 subscribers, 250,000 subscribers out of the gate in under a year because they worked for Linus Media Group. They worked for LMG, and it launched their career because they were on-camera talent for 2 or 3 years with a big YouTuber, instantly got a silver play button fan base when they went their own way. Happens all the time. There are people who all it takes is a shout out from Speed, Kai, Asmongold, and they get 100,000 followers on their main platform. That happens and it's real. And I'm not saying those people aren't creative. I'm not saying those people don't work hard, but I'm saying that's an advantage not afforded to the average person, to the average working class creator. It's very rare. There are some YouTubers, it looks like they started from nothing. I'll tell you, some people, they sold a company and then they got to bum around for a year and make their 100 crappy videos. And then they had unlimited money and unlimited time to learn the ropes behind the scenes, get help, maybe even coaching, and get into cohorts that you've never even heard of. And then they launch their big viral video after they've gotten all the fun videos out of their system. And it makes it look like they were much more organic than they were. But it's not as organic as you are with your 9 to 5 salary. If they had an exit, sold a company, and they've got like $800 to $2 million just sitting in the bank and decide, gee, I'm going to take a year to like go do YouTube. Or Eric at least was public about it. He had a successful 6-figure wedding photography and videography business. He took 2 of his employees. He took $78,000 of his savings out of his coffers, and he launched a YouTube channel. And it wasn't completely from nothing. He also went to LA to be able to be around the big YouTubers to do it and to try to get some more exposure. Even without a relationship with them, he kind of forced a relationship by sneaking into a Logan Paul event, trying to find and pull a prank on David Dobrik. Like, there were these things. But again, it's easier to launch your YouTube career with 2 employees helping you and $78,000 in your war chest to say, gee, I'm going to give it 1 year to try and become a big YouTuber. So I say all that to say, here are the 3 things you should do as a YouTuber who's starting with none of these advantages. People have to click on videos, people have to watch videos as long as possible, and they have to repeat watching videos and clicking on them. Click, watch, repeat. It's my framework. I don't think I've shared this framework with you before, Andrew. That's click, watch, and repeat, right?
You have before, but not on this channel.
Okay, great. So, Andrew, can you really fail at YouTube if you have a significant amount of people that are always clicking on your videos when they show up in your feed? Will you fail to grow at YouTube if that's constantly happening?
No.
If people who click on your videos, if a strong percentage of them constantly watch your videos at least halfway through, don't abandon them in 15 or 30 seconds, and a significant amount of them watch to the end. Like, if half of your audience at least watches 50% of the video and at least 20 to 30% of your audience watches every single video to the end, do you think you're going to struggle to grow a YouTube channel if that's always happening when people click on the videos, and that people are also clicking on your videos constantly when they show up in my feed? I'm a simple man. I see Andrew Can, I click, and I watch, and I watch at least half of it, if not to the end. Okay, cool. And if they keep repeatedly doing that, are you going to struggle to find success on YouTube and to grow?
No.
So that's all you'd have to solve for, is how can I get people to click on videos? How can I get them to watch as long as possible or to the end? And how can I get them to keep coming back whenever they have that opportunity and doing the exact same thing over and over and over again? People's problem is they don't think about it as being that simple, because if you did, for clicking on a video, you'd optimize around, here are topics people care about. Here's a title that will be able to attract the right people that will actually watch this thing. And then here is a thumbnail that is attractive to those people that care about that topic and that conveys the quality of the thing that they're going to be watching. So I have to show that. And then it's relevant to them right now, or whenever it's in their feed, it will be relevant to them. So you'd focus on topic, title, thumbnail, and timing, and that will get you the click, nothing else. Once you get them to watch, structure, script writing, storytelling, style, that will get them to watch and to the end. And then for get them to repeat, you must offer the same value. You must niche down to an audience and say, I will attract this same person and not alienate this type of person over and over again. And I will make stuff that will make them want to not only keep coming back, but recruit more of their own like people to this. If you can do that, click, watch, repeat, you will succeed at YouTube. It is a matter of when, not if.
Yeah. And, you know, people are always watching us and we appreciate it. People are always having, you know, even if they're clicking and they're watching, sometimes, you know, this people ask why I always ask where they can find you, because comments like this. Do you know what happened to YouTube? I subscribed to both of your channels, but they no longer come up. I can't find them to save my soul. So Roberto, if someone can't find you to save your soul, where could they find you?
You can go to youtube.com/@RobertoBlake. and then you could just subscribe, but you could also bookmark that if you're having trouble with YouTube, and then you have it locked in. You can find me anywhere on social media at Roberto Blake. If you want to work with me, you can go to awesomecreatoracademy.com. And of course, you can find me here on the weekend every Saturday on the Opus channel.
And you can find me here on Opus as well, and at Andrew K on YouTube. Thank you everyone so much for watching. What a great conversation. If you have any ideas that you'd want to see us cover, please let us know. And as always, go out there, create something new. And as Roberto would say, create something awesome. Take care, everyone.